When was the last time a server pissed you off?
We'll go with probably recently. I'd say probably earlier in the week.
Okay.
For being perfectly honest.
Tell the guests about it.
One of the big pride points for me is steps of service, right? Mm-hmm. So when I see one of my servers, or just maybe not one of my servers, but one of the servers on staff essentially doing something boneheaded in my opinion, or just something that we've gone over, it makes me want to pull my hair out essentially, or just drive me nuts. And what I mean by that is, not greeting a table properly, like marking them initially, like that's a big sticking point for me, like, because we get busy, how that place is geared. You can go from 0 to 100 real quick in that place. So not marking a table means, okay, well now I've got a guest looking around. I see this, I see that. Problematic. Okay. Because now I don't know if they've been acknowledged or not, so that could stem into one problem right off the bat. So that was where it started. Then you want to go into, okay, they didn't mark their table, and then afterward, they fired their appetizer, and then they immediately fired the entree, like without 2 minutes going by on the appetizer, and it's like, we weren't busy.
Hi, welcome to the Modern Waiter Podcast. I'm Marlon Joseph, the Modern Waiter, where we discuss all things restaurant business. Learn something, laugh at something. In today's episode, I would love to know 6 things your restaurant manager wants you to know. What are the things that servers or kitchen staff do that cause pain points? What are some of the things that employees do that we may not know creates more work for the manager? What sets you up for success or failure? Additionally, what are some of the things that guests do that are irksome? We welcome Chris G to the show to discuss, but first, the intro.
Tired of working deadbeat jobs for lame pay. I'm tired of getting fired and hired the same day. If you know the rules of the game, then you'll stay. And if you don't...
As usual, I'm joined by my good friend Danny DeVillo.
What's up, people?
Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for having me on.
Now, this is a great experience because we've had Chris on a
Shift Drinks, yes.
Mm-hmm. And at that time, he was
a server.
Yeah. Now he moved up like George and Wheezy.
Yep. To the east side.
So he's on the other side, and I'm really curious about a lot of things.
Yeah.
From a server perspective, how was the transition?
All right, so it was a little bit daunting at first. I think that there was like that level of excitement, but there was also kind of that great unknown, mm-hmm. Especially just taking some time off and basically saying, okay, I don't really want to do the serving thing, for a while. Mm-hmm. Went and did something different, came back, and, I think I needed that change of role, though, or I needed something different to do just to kind of challenge myself again and mm-hmm. kind of feel like I'm, that I had a little bit more growth. I feel like I kind of did all I could do at our place, as a server. I don't think there was really much else that I could have done in the old role.
Starting out as a manager, did you feel any imposter syndrome?
No, I don't really think I felt imposter syndrome too much. I think it was more or less trying just to get a feel for how I was going to contribute to the team in the new role, mm-hmm. and how I was going to kind of establish the new role, essentially. Probably the best way to describe that. I didn't want to be a drill sergeant, but I also didn't want to be, a big old pillow that everybody, could just walk all over and everything like that either, you know what I mean?
I can only imagine one of the challenging things for you is being in the same building that you were a server. Because your restaurant has other properties. So did you have a choice in that? Did you want to be in this particular property, or did you want to be somewhere else and this is where they placed you?
All right, so basically to give you like a very, very abridged version of pretty much how it all came to be. Mm-hmm. So when I came back, I talked to the general manager, who's, worked with for many years. We had about an hour-long conversation, like, right by the water. Everything was really nice.
Mm-hmm. Sounds romantic.
Yeah, minus the long walk on the beach and the candlelit dinner afterward. I think I kind of got boned on that one. You guys it is what it is, But long and the short of it, though, essentially would have been, we kind of discussed, potential role if I were to step on and become a manager. Mm-hmm. And, right from the bat, like after we had that little discussion, we were both on the same page. I wanted to come on and, become the, server manager, or at least somebody that could, kind of help and try and, tighten the reins a little bit and maybe tune some things up a little bit that we might have gotten away from when I first started there, or just things that I've noticed in my tenure there as a server.
Okay.
But after the conversation, I had a nice little conversation afterward with one of the big wigs over at the our the overall restaurateur group and everything like that. Everything went well, and it was kind of like they kind of knew I was going back there to be a sock. That's where I wanted to be. They had me train at one of the sister companies, for a month, just to kind of be the first manager coming on to take on some of the, standards, practices, and maybe some of the, culture, and kind of bring that on to what, the current, our place has, or didn't have, I should reiterate. And, while keeping it still very much the same way it was there. So that was kind of my task, to kind of bring in standards and practices, but maintain, the old aura of, what makes the place unique and everything like that.
What keeps it special?
Exactly.
Now, from a guest perspective, what's the first thing? What do you want a guest to know that managers have to deal with?
All right, so if you don't immediately see us out in the open, or whatever, just kind of bear in mind if there's only one of us on premise at that time, probably putting out a fire here or there. You may never see it, but if I'm not on the floor as frequently as I'd like to be, it's probably because I'm doing 20 other things, whether it be something kitchen related, something at the bar, or just something in the back office because something went down.
Okay.
So I think the expectation, if they don't see a manager on the floor at all times, they assume hey, we're not taking things seriously. But it's kind of like, instead of being able to put out one fire like I was able to, as a server, and be able to be right in front view of the guest all the time, now I'm kind of having to oversee the entire operation, at all times. So it's a little bit more of a task, but that would probably be the first and most important thing. I just kind of want everybody to know it's like we're, chances are we're probably doing 90 things at once, and we will eventually get to you. I always try to make it a priority to get to them and do the table touches and everything else. But that's, I think, the common misconception. If you're out of sight, you're out of mind. People tend to, think that is at least what I've kind of noticed in that short time of being a manager.
What works the best as far as getting, say, you're putting out a fire, say, oh, can I speak to the manager?
Of course.
What works best with you?
Okay, so
let me interrupt you. From a guest point of view.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, from a guest point of view, as far as
like there's a problem at a table.
Okay.
Yeah. And now you're at the table.
Manager. Now you're at the table.
Copy.
Yeah, because some people they come off shitty right away, or they come off sweet, or they try to tell you what they want. It's like, oh, I want this for free. What works best for you as far as
okay, so that would be basically getting a feel for them right off the rip. So if I go over there and I'm talking to the guest at that particular moment in time, I'm going to kind of find out what happened, what their temperament is and all that. And, ever the server brain that I had back in the day, it was just like I can kind of troubleshoot something really quickly. So again, order of operations. So if it was something as minuscule as, a drink didn't come out in 5 minutes or something like that, okay, fine. You sit there, you buy them a drink, or, you just kind of, diffuse the situation by saying, oh yeah, it's just like you'll explain what happened, or you'll kind of give them an abridged version of what went on without trying to make an excuse. You're just like, oh well, this happened over here. Apologize about that. Hopefully you're enjoying the drink. Let me, what were you having? Oh, okay. Let me go ahead and grab you another one, and we'll go from there. Or if they weren't drinking, then it's like, okay, well, hopefully you save room for dessert. You figure something out there. So you figure out something to sweeten the deal, or, you just get to know them. I feel like when I'm able to kind of make a personal connection, much like I did as a server, it just makes things a lot easier, because then I've already won them over at that point, or maybe not necessarily won them over, but I've got them back at neutral.
Okay.
And then we can, start cracking jokes. Or
So you say the first thing probably be you want to make that personal connection.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Same thing as I did as a server. That's probably the best way to describe that, making a personal connection.
Gotcha.
That's one thing I think I thrived as a server, and that's one thing that I carried over as a manager. I want to be able to make the guest feel comfortable, whether I'm wearing one hat or another.
Okay.
Probably the best way to describe that.
When you say wearing one hat or another, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so basically you have different roles in the restaurant, right? So basically one of our managers says, I wear many hats in this restaurant. Danny can attest to it because he's heard said person say it multiple times over, day in and day out. So basically, you're playing the role of, all right, well, wearing the hat on this case. Okay, so now I'm a manager, so that's like the primary hat I wear. But, again, sometimes you're sitting there, you're hopping behind the bar, so you're helping bartend, you're helping do this. Or in some cases, you're getting an order for a server, so you're stepping right back into an old role, for me at least, where, okay, I'm, playing the role of a server for a moment over here and just trying to, help out where I can. So
think of the last time. Now, this is kind of getting into real situations, so don't really give me too much details.
Don't worry about
that. When was the last time a server pissed you off?
We'll go with probably recently. I'd say probably earlier in the week.
Okay.
For being perfectly honest.
Tell the guests about it.
All right. So, said server essentially, rung a few things in, and it's one of the big pride points for me is steps of service, right? Mm-hmm. So when I see one of my servers, or just maybe not one of my servers, but one of the servers on staff essentially doing something boneheaded in my opinion, or just something that we've gone over, it makes me want to pull my hair out essentially, or just drive me nuts. And what I mean by that is, not greeting a table properly, like marking them initially, like that's a big sticking point for me, like, because we get busy, how that place is geared. You can go from 0 to 100 real quick in that place. So not marking a table means, okay, well, now I've got a guest looking around. I see this, I see that. Problematic. Okay. Because now I don't know if they've been acknowledged or not, so that could stem into one problem right off the bat. So that was where it started. Then you want to go into, okay, they didn't mark their table, and then afterward, they fired their appetizer, and then they immediately fired the entree, like without 2 minutes going by on the appetizer, and it's like, we weren't busy.
Okay.
We weren't busy, so it's you're not coursing out you're not coursing out everything appropriately, and it may not matter to every single guest, but I know that as far as from what we're supposed to be doing, as servers and how we're geared at that place, we should be coursing everything out, and it's like that little attention to detail. Mm-hmm. And then of course when things kind of blew up on the launch pad afterward because something came out quicker than it needed to. Now they're sitting there like, oh, the guest is upset because of this and that. And I'm just looking at them kind of like, well, what exactly did you do? And then they explain to me what happened. And I'm like, well, why did you do that? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, well, because I didn't know how long it was going to. And I had to look at them kind of just point blank, very, very blankly without raising my voice or anything like that, because it was just like, it's not busy. What are you doing?
Now, steps of service seems to be a big part of what you see. I mean, it's what a part of what we all see.
Yeah.
What is and we just recently did a show on steps of service.
Yes,
so this is great. What is a service step that is most irksome that people miss? You mentioned, putting the indicator down. Mm-hmm. An indicator in this case is a coaster. In other restaurants, it's movement of a salt and pepper and things like that. Mm-hmm. I've seen restaurants where the server comes up and the salt and peppers are near the edge of the table, and they just casually move it to the back. That's their signal there. Mm-hmm. What is irksome to you in that list of steps of service that people miss? Okay,
so a big one for me really is going to be kind of like table maintenance. That's a huge one for me, because at the end of the day, there's always you always have an opportunity while you're at the table to be able to clean something off. You're going to interact with that guest anyways. You're going to ask for a refill, or you're going to see if they want to do another course, or, you're always kind of, periodically checking in on that table. Mm-hmm. And I think there's nothing that irks me more than when I see, somebody basically not clear a table before another course comes on. Mm. So it's just negligence, and it just upsets me in a way, because you had multiple opportunities to do it. So now you're basically telling me that you couldn't be bothered to, clean a table off, which is a perception thing, like it's basically like you own that little area. So if you have a section, you have multiple tables, you want that to look good, and you want to be able to, have things, look great.
Yeah.
So if the table looks good, now the perception is, okay, you're on point, you're doing everything that you need to do. Now, I'm not unsympathetic to the fact that you might be busy and you might need the extra help or whatever. That's fine. I totally get that. But like if it's slow, or, it's a normal, regular pace, you should be able to do it.
Yeah.
I guess table maintenance would be the main one there.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the huge sticking point for me, really.
And that's a visual one to you and the guest. That's very. It's big in a way that you're right in the middle of it. It's not in the beginning or the end. You're right in the middle where it's most important to give these people attention and attention to detail in a way that if it's not being used, it's literally garbage. It needs to go. And it says that, hey, I care about you, and where you put your elbows, where you put your fork and all that stuff, and you clear it out, you clean up, and you get ready for...
Entree.
Yeah, the entree or the
dessert
check
or whatever,
dessert
yeah.
or whatever the case may be.
Whatever the next course or whatever the next course of action is going to be.
Correct. And there are... we mentioned at the top of the show that we're servers, so we have a server lens. What lens did you have to pick up when you became a manager that you did not have before?
Basically, when I had the server lens on, you're basically only focusing in on your area and maybe whatever common areas that you have, for side work, essentially. So that would have been the two main things there. Now, essentially, the thing that I had to pick up was, okay, well, now, instead of me just paying attention to just one section, now I'm kind of scoping out the entire restaurant, including bar, making sure that kitchen's taken care of as well. So I'm kind of looking through multiple lenses now and making also sure that everything's functioning, that the restaurant is clean, and also just kind of making sure that nothing's getting log jammed or backed up as far as, okay, well, why do we have a wait going on right now, and kind of being able to think on the fly over here. All right, well, why how's it gotten to that point, or where like just trying to make sure that things maintain and run as smoothly as possible. So for me, it's just kind of just seeing all the moving parts all at once as opposed to just one particular area. Gotcha. And kind of figuring out, how to troubleshoot it or just how to, maintain it and keep that ebb and flow going perfectly.
Sure.
So that's probably the one major thing that I had to pick up. But aside from that, it's also just kind of now reading body languages for, guests a lot more, because that'll probably be something that comes up a little bit later on. But, for example, if say one of the staff doesn't, one of the members of the staff doesn't tell me about something with, something that goes on with a guest or something like that, being able to read that body language right away and seeing like, okay, something seems a little off over here. If I wasn't already doing a table touch here, now I 100% have to go and do a table touch there.
Yeah.
And get to the bottom of it and do the, and kind of find out what's going on before it balloons into something worse. So.
We talked about restaurant nightmares before.
We did.
I'm not sure if you've had enough pressure at your position as of yet. Have you had any restaurant manager nightmares?
Because I'm sure you've been in the business long enough. You've had the weeds nightmare. Okay, we've all had that. Okay?
Stop trying to inception what his nightmares are. He's thinking all the nightmares are in the weeds. Not all the nightmares are in the weeds.
No. So not all of them are, but
the restaurant nightmare before working in the restaurant, something happening.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
What is your manager nightmare?
Okay, so I think it's not necessarily being in the weeds, because I think that's going to be 90% of everybody's restaurant nightmare. Like, let's just get that, straightened out right away. But I think for me, honestly, it would have to probably be a multitude of things. Knowing that you have to have a laundry list of things to do at the end of the night, where you get slammed on unexpectedly, being short-staffed. And I think really for me...
Short-staffed is a good one.
Yeah. Being short-staffed is a huge one, because you're getting pressure to cut accordingly, but at the same time, it's like when you get that unaccounted for hit, now my thing is making sure that I have all the proper players in place. So now it's kind of like thinking more like a coach at this point. Like at times I'm sitting there thinking like I'm Eric Spoelstra or some crap like that, where I'm like, okay, well now I've got to do a defensive shift over here. Or like, now we've got to run a zone or something like that. So you have to always constantly figure out like, where the chess pieces have to be at all times. So I think for me, that's kind of like something that stresses me out a little bit. If you know that you're down somebody or something unexpected happened, like for example, Sunday we had a 20 top that, came in originally unannounced. So we accommodated that. And then all of a sudden 10 more people showed up. Then an additional 20 showed up.
At the same party? Or?
It's the same party.
People.
50 people went upstairs.
20 people called, 50 people showed up.
That's wild.
No, that's not fair.
What do you mean fair? There's no fair in restaurant.
There's no crying in baseball, Danny.
Yeah, you just take it and count your money. Fair.
I mean, it wouldn't have been so bad if it was just for the sheer fact that they would have told us ahead of time and we could have shifted one of the servers downstairs, upstairs to help out with it. Mm-hmm. But it's like, oh no, we've got 20 going on, and 15 minutes pass, and then again, they just slowly start trickling in, and then at the very back end, it was like another large group, and it's like, is this the same group? So, and then I'm hearing more and more about it as I'm walking in. I'm just like, Jesus, this is terrible. Yeah, I'm like, my heart goes.
That's a nightmare.
My heart goes out to him. Like, thankfully,
I was there.
Yeah, thankfully, it was. We got through it, but. Mm-hmm. That probably would have been that would have been like a prime example of just the unexpected that we have to deal as managers. And it's like, crap, now you've got to make sure that you have enough, accommodate. Now you have to make sure you have the right server on for it. Now you got to make sure, did my host look at them sideways when the whole thing was going on? You always got to kind of look at it from multiple lenses. But I think that'd probably be the biggest one, is just being short-staffed. Other one would probably be like all the things that I would have gotten caught up on, and now I've got to, do it on the back end. So it's all my end of the night stuff.
Gotcha.
So that, when that starts compounding because I had unexpected things happening during the shift, all right, well, now I've got to figure out how am I going to get it to where I can minimize this later on.
So you had spoke just a minute ago about the lens changing from, because I feel like we always talk about being players in the game, and me and you've even had these conversations before when you were a server.
Yep.
About, what position you play and how you are as a server. Mm-hmm. Now that you are a manager / coach, how does that lens change for you overall?
So my approach on how I would have to convey something, whether it was something that was irking me or just an overall concept or something to bring on and try and make, a reality in the restaurant. I think I was a little bit more, I'm not going to say abrasive when I was a server, but having to dial it back a little bit and being a little bit more diplomatic in terms of how you approach certain system or not systems, but situations.
You represent the whole company now.
Yeah,
exactly. So,
yeah.
So I think that would be the biggest thing. At least there, having to pump the brakes a little bit and figure out how to again be a little bit more diplomatic and how to.
I'm going to choose my words carefully.
Exactly. Like, it's just like, Lo, give me the strength. No, there's only maybe been one or two moments where I've probably literally had that inner monologue. Mm-hmm. No, but, I think it's just a mindset thing. So I'd have to sit there and just kind of recalculate how I do things or recorrect or, recalibrate is probably a better term to use for that. So recalibrate how I would, go about everything. So it's me being, kind of a nurturer now, trying to be a little bit more of a mentor, because again, the key bullet point for me coming back was to be, the server manager. So, when I have the free time, I try to, kind of observe what goes on and be able to, especially for the newer people coming in that probably don't know how our place is geared as much as maybe say Danny or a couple of our other veterans would be.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just trying to, get them to elevate them, level them up essentially. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing for me, whether it's giving them, wine knowledge, teaching them a little bit about, cocktails, a little bit more about the menu, what you can and cannot do, or just ways to kind of simplify, a formula that they had, on how they're approaching a table or how they're managing their section, and essentially limiting the steps, but maximizing the overall effectiveness or, just how efficiently they're getting the job done.
Okay. Now, is it frustrating for you as a manager because you know what it's like to be a server, right?
Right.
You know exactly what it takes, and not only that, you're in that same building where you were a server. Mm-hmm. Is it frustrating to you've used the phrase "it's not that hard" to know that
I've used that term quite a few times.
You know what it takes,
yes.
And then you're like,
Yep. No, there's been a few times, and it has caused some headaches here and there. Mm-hmm. Again, it's not that hard. I mean, I used to kind of mock it a little bit when one of our old GMs was there, and he's just a walking soundbite in and of itself. But I find myself quoting him more and more now, so it's funny because you see it, and it's like exactly. So I do tend to see a little bit more of where the frustration lies because. Now I'm seeing it from a different scope, and it's some of the things that I knew what to do as a server, and now you see them not doing it, or you see a bartender not doing it, or you see it's just something that's and the damnedest thing is it's always something that's like very, very, obvious. It's literal common sense.
Okay.
So it's like the little things that you're just kind of like baffled. You're like, how? Why? Like what? Like. Danny knows my frustration. I'll pull him aside and I'll just be like, what is going on right now?
Well, some things you didn't have to deal with before because you were just coworkers and you didn't necessarily see it in that way.
Of course.
But now, like you said, you have the whole restaurant. You have the front of the house, you have the back of the house, you have the bar, and you have to deal with that. Now, you've gone through things like you're putting out different fires. You may make a personal connection when you are putting out fires at the table in particular. You mentioned a pain point being steps of service. And one of the pain points in steps of service is table maintenance. And one of the things is multiple lenses. You're seeing all the moving parts. And then having to deal with unexpected things. Now I'm particularly interested in a couple more things before you go. What has given you the most pressure? Where is the most pressure coming from in your job?
All right, so I think the most pressure coming from the job is kind of, I think, my own expectations. So I kind of know how to navigate things with corporate, things with my boss or our general manager essentially. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest thing for me is I just even as a server back in the day, I always put a lot of pressure on myself to always try to find a way to be the best, like do the best that I can, be the best, just try to elevate everything that I can,
he drinks
contribute.
Goat fuel. Okay. Greatest of all time. Let's just be honest.
Well, I mean, that was an old moniker, right? So,
Goat fuel.
Yeah, so that was an old moniker back when I was still serving. But I think the biggest pressure that I have in the restaurant is pressure that I put on myself, essentially. Mm-hmm. I just have very high expectations of myself, and I want to make sure that I'm, exceeding those expectations.
Gotcha.
And I think that's the constant battle that I have going on, where I'm kind of like, all right, Chris, you have been there for multiple years in a different in a different role. Now the important thing is learn, take the step back, let the game come to you, and just trying to figure things out. There's a lot of things that you're already ahead of the game on, just having that I guess that experience and having that, past or that history with said place. Mm-hmm. So now it's just kind of, you just want to be able to contribute. You want to be able to contribute as much as you did in your old role, but, being able to contribute in the new role and just, raise up the entirety of the restaurant as a whole. So for me, I want my team, I want my division or my department to be the best.
Okay.
So I'm kind of driven to say, okay, well, everything else is going on over here. We're going to get to that, but Chris's department over here, that's the strongest department in the restaurant.
Okay.
So it's like it's a pride point for me.
All right. I'll let you go on this one. How are you adjusting, or did you adjust, and maybe you haven't, to having no cash?
Oh, great question. I like that one.
Okay, so not being able to walk out with the same night with the cash, it took a little getting used to. But, I think it was a very good thing in a lot of ways. It was actually a great thing because, you budget a little bit more, or you just are a little bit smarter with your money. Mm-hmm. There's always that temptation, after working a Friday or a Saturday night, you're walking out with like $300, $400, $500. Mm-hmm. So you're like, oh, I've got a little extra money burned into my pocket because it's like, it's right there. Now it's
But it
kind
might
of
not be a little extra money. It might just be that might be the balancing money. In
absolutely. But mentally you're seeing it there. It's quick money. You're not thinking like that. You're not conditioned to think that way.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're raking in that money, it's easier to save a little bit here and there and all the other stuff, but still go out and have a good time almost same night, same day, same week. Now being on salary and getting paid, only like twice a month. You honestly have to kind of, think a little bit more of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So I think it's been good for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was never terrible with money, but at the end of the day, it, just kind of forced me to be a little bit smarter with my money, or maybe not smarter in a sense, but a little bit more conscientious. I have to be a little bit more conscientious with, my spending habits, or just when I spend, how I do things. And, it's been a lot better. I'm actually very happy that, being on salary now, I don't have to worry about the restaurant being busy or being slow now. Mm-hmm. I'm getting paid regardless of what happens. Yeah. I want it to be busy because I want everybody to make money. I want my staff to be happy at all times. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's like that's one less thing that I have to worry about is like, Monday night, we've had 100 covers for the entire day. I'm not as worried about it.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear about the shift personally because we did a show with Barbara. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
Her book is
Tipped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stern? No, it's not. No, I think about something else.
Yeah, you're definitely thinking of somebody else there, bub.
Yes, you are. And she talks about shifting your thought process and your mentality. So it's interesting to hear you say that because when you do have cash in your pocket, you treat it differently because it just came to you out of the ether.
Yeah. And there's always another day where you can go make up that money if you just spend it.
Correct.
That's
Absolutely.
that's the
that's the danger.
Yeah, that's the total danger.
That's how you could get into trouble.
Yeah.
Where it's not real till you take it home and put it in the bank. Mm-hmm. So if you made $250 and you spent $50, you made $250,
but you really made $100. You made $200.
But you're walking home with $200 at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yes. So it's interesting to hear you say that it changes your mentality about the structure of your finances, and that to me is fascinating. And I know I promised to let you go, but when I wrote to you the other night and said, hey, I'm interested in your pain points or things that a restaurant manager wants you to know. What did you come up with that I did not ask you as of yet?
As far as like a pain point and all that,
just a PSA, like this is what a manager has to go through. This is what I have to deal with. You guys think my job is this, but
what you thought about that we didn't really talk about?
Yeah.
I think there's appropriate times that you get a manager involved on something, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say something's running too long, but in an appropriate time frame. And what I mean by that is if something's running a little bit long, you obviously as a server or a bartender, you kind of know how long a drink's supposed to hit a table. Food, whether it's appetizer, entree, or dessert, how long it's at least on average supposed to hit a table. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you gauge that with how busy a restaurant is. Sometimes it'll be a little bit longer. Sometimes it's a little bit shorter, right? But there are going to be exceptions. Something gets improperly made or something of the sort, or in some cases something doesn't get wrong or miss wrong or what have you. So there's so many variables, right? Yeah. And I can stop the bleeding essentially.
True.
If it goes on and that your check's running 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and you haven't even made the conscientious effort to come to me or get anybody else involved to let them know, hey, this is running long, and you see that check hasn't been fired or what have you, or you haven't even fired the check. Now I'm past the trenches like, in World War I terms, essentially. So I'm basically running across a battlefield with a whole bunch of mortars going off. I'm probably going to get blown to smithereens at that point because you put me in a situation where I'm
I can feel his pain right now.
So I'm just
you set me up, man.
Exactly.
You set me up.
I'm feeling like Joe Pesci at the end of Goodfellas over there where I'm about to go get made and then I'm like, it's an empty room and I'm like, the fix is in and you don't even know what happened. They done did me Old Yeller style.
Oh my God.
I think that would be a major pain point essentially. It's for anybody that's listening, whether it's server or guest or whatever, just kind of that would probably be the main sticking point for me. Is just
I feel it in his voice.
you don't please note that like if I'm coming out and something's 20 to 25 minutes, I promise you, and it's not ineptitude, it's probably I was informed way later than I needed to be on it. And now I'm basically sitting there saying, all right, please don't kill me as I try to make things, as I try to rectify the situation.
I don't want to die.
It's like, I didn't do it, I swear. So yeah, I think that would have been probably the biggest one for me.
Talking about the listeners out there, if there is if you're in the business or not in the business, and there was a situation that called for a manager, just let us know. We're interested in that story. You can email me, themodernwaiter@gmail.com, or message me and follow me on Instagram @themodernwaiterpodcast.
Boom.
Or leave a comment in the old YouTubes, the tubes of you. Now, are you a Marvel fan by any chance?
Big Marvel fan.
Okay, big Marvel fan. The original Avengers. Okay, you're opening a restaurant and you're the owner, and you have to place the original Avengers into each role in the restaurant.
Okay.
You have manager, host, bar. You have a cook, dishwasher, server, and a busser.
Okay.
You got to place them. Who's your manager?
I think my manager would have to probably be Captain America.
Okay.
So we'll go Steve Rogers on that bad boy. There you go.
And who's your host?
Okay, so the host, I think you have to have a proper first impression. So I'd probably have to say Black Widow.
Okay.
Probably go Black Widow with the hostess.
Scarlett Johansson.
Exactly. So
And who's your bartender?
Tony Stark. We're going Iron Man on that one.
Okay.
Boom.
Got all the charisma in the world. I think you need that at the bar.
Who's cooking for you?
Who's cooking for me? I'd have to probably say we're going. I feel like Hawkeye would probably be a good.
Line cook?
I feel like he'd be a great line cook, actually.
Okay.
Or a chef in general, depending on where you want to
Paint
place
yourself in the corner now. Who's your dishwasher? Because you got to place Hulk somewhere.
Oh, Hulk's going to be the dishwasher for sure.
Oh, he's breaking all your stuff.
Hulk. Well, I mean, if you're going to have him as Bruce Banner, then you're good. It's when you piss him off and turn him into the Hulk that it might be a problem.
When is a dishwasher not pissed off in a shift? Please tell me that. Every night they get pissed off at least 1 or 2 times.
Well, I mean,
he's not wrong.
He's certainly not wrong, but I think where we're at, we don't really have it as badly as other places. I know other places. I've seen it. I've worked it. I know it. Our place, our guys are pretty even keel. We might have we might actually have one that gets a little pissy here and there, but nothing that's. But he normally just lets it die within 2 seconds.
Hulk's washing your dishes. All right.
Yep.
Who's your server?
Who's my server? All right, so who do we have left at this point over
here?
here?
You have Thor. I'll even give you Fury and Hill.
Okay, so I think... let's see.
Because you have server and busser next.
You have server and busser. Okay, so let's go ahead and have Thor be the busser.
Okay.
And then I think as far as server goes, we'll do Nick Fury.
Boom.
All right. That's a good lineup.
I do like that.
I do like that. All except for Hulk.
I mean, hey, but where else?
Have some indestructible plates.
Even if he gets mad in the kitchen, he'll break some plates. It don't matter where you put him at. He's gonna break something.
Exactly. So it's just like I'm like,
so
listen.
let's take the minimal damage.
Exactly.
I'm putting Hulk at the door, bro. Okay.
As the host?
Yes.
He's throwing motherfuckers, huh?
Well, you can. Nobody's messing with him.
Why don't we just put him as like the bouncer then, or something in there, like security? Put him on detail,
bro. It's a restaurant.
This is true. This is very true.
Thank you so much, man. It's very enlightening
me,
to understand, the reason for you getting into management is that you ran out of road in your emotional and career as far as just I want to do something more, and you going into management. So that's pretty cool for you to share that with us. Thank you so much, Joseph. I'm Marlon Joseph, the Modern Waiter.
I'm Danny Villa. Subscribe, people. Thank you, Chris, for showing up.
Hey, on time. On the dot.
On the penny, yeah.
There it is.
Punto, as the Spanish people say.
Hey, you told me 12? I was here at 12, man.
Right here on time.
We will see you next time.
Later.
Y'all niggas start to feel in my team. So glad you came in.